Hello, this is Earl Grey with a review of the Vertigo series 100 Bullets. And I think the main line for this crime noir series could be everything's perfect, because the series borders at least on perfection. Starting with the same artist all over the series, and this is Eduardo Rizzo, and we have of course the same writer throughout the series, Brian Azzarello. Even the cover artist, Dave Johnson, did all the covers, and the colorist Patricia Mulvihill and the letterer Clem Robbins, they all stay throughout the series, and there are no changes in the creative team, and this is always a good sign, I guess. Talking about perfection, in the greater scheme of things, you got a perfectly planned story over 100 issues with dozens of characters and playing on different timescales, actually since the end of the 16th century until recent times. And the artist Rizzo delivers this plot in elegant drawn pictures with great layouts and especially a fantastic play with light and shadows. Some pages, though colored in a very efficient way, are soaked in a nightmarish black, as it should be in a good crime noir novel. Maybe in overdoing, in showcasing perfection, there lies one of the tiny flaws that I can find here. Maybe, and I would like to leave this open, maybe Azzarello overdoes a little too much, overdoes it with his cast of characters.
There's so many different characters. I mean, just talking about, we could be here for hours going through all these guys. I mean, it's the plot is, and the cast is enormous. Though, now that we're getting, into the last arc, the last year of it, the cast is shrinking really quickly, which is sort of depressing. It's like I've known these characters for 10 years. It's like I'm killing my friends. It's awful.
He's a little bit like a juggler who throws one ball after the other into the air. He keeps them all in the air, but for the audience, it's sometimes impossible to follow every flying curve of his ambitious plot, especially if you think that this story came out originally in single issues. So I think that 100 Bullets is a very good example of a series that wins big time when you are reading it in trade form. Yeah, and sometimes as a not native English speaking reader, I have wished Azzarello would have minimized the street language of some of his characters. I had a hard time figuring out some caption boxes or speech bubbles with all the motherfucker, yo, and street language going on. And yeah. And like Azzarello, the artist Eduardo Risso seems to be a little drunk of his own abilities as well. There are perspectives through window shields, mirrors from the bottom of a flipper or an ashtray, or even from the inside of the mouth of a dog. Yeah. Some pages are filled with original details to the brim that on one side add up to the dense atmosphere, but on the other hand sometimes look a little bit manieristic. Sometimes maybe a little less would have been given some pages even more punch. But even a skillful artist like Risso has partly a tough struggle with the manifold cast of characters that Azzarello is throwing at him. While he manages to draw most of the male characters very distinct and distinguishable, the female protagonists tend all in all too much to be some idealistic, curvy dream woman with a doll-like face. So you often have to distinguish them by the color of their hair or skin or characteristic tattoos or such. But hey, 100 Bullets is not to the least about a man's world beyond any control, and so I guess it's fitting that almost all the women are looking like they are taking out of a male fantasy / projection. And somehow I would be an hypocrite to blame someone for this. The last hair in this tasty soup is maybe the overall plot, grounding on a conspiracy theory about 13 families who allegedly own a mighty trust since one event back in the day when the first pilgrims hit and get hit on Roanoke Island. I mean, like nearly every conspiracy theory, this surely functions as a fictional basis, but therefore 100 Bullets stays just fiction, because the trust is too much an oversimplification of the real conditions of might and wealth. Okay, so much for Earl Grey being Earl Grouch. Overall, naturally, 100 Bullets is a fantastic series with fantastic art and fantastic writing, up to par with, let's say, the best works of Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. The tiniest flaws are always easier to pin down than to tell why a story is greater than great. At its best parts, at its best parts, 100 Bullets just left me reading with my jaws open, not able to wisecrack around. Nevertheless, I want to try to show you the greatness that is 100 Bullets in picking two tiny parts of the whole story. Tiny parts, but I think quite brilliant parts. So there is this issue called Cole, after one of the main protagonists of the grand plot. Our pathetic criminals try to get a little money out of this pub, but unlike the real criminals, the one from the trust, they are getting no money at all. The safe is closed, the keys are gone with the manager's not there, everything's not working to the quote-on-quote off plan of the villains, of the little villains here. And to maximize the shit they're in, one of the villains is so stupid to put off his mask, and then it's all a question of, now we have to shoot all the other guests in the pub, and it's a very cliché-y story when I tell you this, but it's strange, but it's funny in a way, and how this went south is very entertaining in a, I just have to say it, in a quite pervertly way, and even the end is not so astounding at all, because here Mr. Cole turns up and the guests could leave, but the criminals get shot, killed by Mr. Cole, who just wants a drink in the pub and some peace. And it's cruel, it's violent, but funny, and a very, very, very strange mix. More touching, emotional touching, is this story. Oh, here it's the end of the story, actually. The big villains, it's sort of a private security for the trust, but they all have killed multiple times. But you see his emotions here, and that's one aspect of 100 Bullets, that there's no black and white, and even some of the villains are sometimes very sympathetic, likable in a way, in a strange way. But back to this little man, he wants him to shoot him. He wants to commit suicide, because everything in his life was his music. He blows the trumpet, and that was everything, or the only thing in life that he had. And sadly enough, as you can see here, during an explosion, he lost his jaw, his underjaw, in this falle, bear trap, in this trap, and this story is not only brutal and violent, which I don't need every time, but it's very emotional, touching, and yeah. Okay, as I said, it's difficult to show sometimes why stories are so good. But at least I tried. Thanks for listening and watching. Goodbye.